Good afternoon, Mr. Rohan Vaidya.
Good afternoon.
I am Priya Yadav. I am an assistant editor with eGov magazine of eDex Technomedia. And eGov magazine is one of the 4 magazines of eDex Technomedia, apart from eHealth, which deals with the health vertical, and digital learning, which deals with the digital learning vertical, and the education vertical, and BFSI is in banking and insurance sector. I would request you to begin this interaction with an introduction of yours and some of the key projects and initiatives that you have taken.
Sure. Thanks, Priya. Thanks for having me here. My name is Rohan Vaidya. I am the country manager for CyberArk. CyberArk is a security company, a cyber security company, which is into privilege access management, which is the critical part of the cyber security space in terms of we are like the last line of defense. We've been in India for about close to 5 years now, and most of our business within India has been with the enterprise space. Within the enterprise space, we have been quite successful in the IT/ITES, the banking, manufacturing, and we have some large government projects that we've also been able to kind of win and protect those accounts.
Okay, great. And actually, this our interaction becomes much more relevant in times of like these of pandemic, where everything has come to a stall almost in the physical world, and everything is moved online, be it education or work or everything, the governments, everything. So, can you please tell us what are the patterns that you're seeing in terms of dangers that people have and are vulnerable to, but are not aware of? Like people are working from home, and from the business perspective, right to the government, business, and the individual level.
Okay. So let me break this answer in a multiple pieces so that it's easier and I'm able to explain it in a better way. So one is with the pandemic coming in, the first reaction was the lockdown, which started somewhere in March, and most of the people were kind of not prepared to work from home. The initial few weeks, there was a more or less a lull period where people believed that it would be off for a few weeks and then people will go back to office and start working. So apart from a few IT companies, I think most of the organizations, the larger part of the staff was not really equipped to work from home. And when they realized that it was a larger lockdown period and the business had to move, and of course it was going to be the financial end year, the year end for India, and most of the businesses were supposed to be closing books, there were orders to be booked, and there was a lot of things which had to be done, where internally people started talking about how do we utilize all the IT assets which are there with personal assets which could be used for business. Now, if you go in history, most of the corporates would never allow people to work from home, especially from a confidentiality perspective, especially from the connectivity, productivity, all those kind of things which were there. Now we were like put to the wall, and people started saying, okay, we will let you operate out of homes. And then the operation started with people where it was very necessary. And then there were senior managements who were working because senior management had the ability to work. So initial piece, which if you look at any cyber attack, it starts from an endpoint. So this is where the surface area suddenly widened up, where people started using their phones, their laptops, personal laptops, their personal iPads or tabs to start doing it. Now, certain places people in certain organizations, people opened up the corporate network to work, or people operated from their personal email IDs, and they did not have many security parameters put in on personal IDs or personal devices, the way a corporate would kind of ensure that their networks, their what I would say, the endpoints are kind of protected. That is where we saw a lot of initial phishing attacks which happened, and then you had a lot of ransomware attacks which started coming in. And you had a big spike somewhere in mid of April. If you would notice, there were a lot of small enterprise and large enterprise which were getting attacked. Now, whether the attackers were completely successful or not was a different story. But then the cyber criminals saw this as a perfect opportunity to start penetrating into it. Also, if you see, a lot of people suddenly switched on to start using internet from home, which again, most of the routers are not very secure, because it's also from an awareness and education perspective. Also, the standards are never easily followed. Also, people were sharing passwords with neighbors, with families, so that you could start doing and doing things. Then you saw a big trend of Netflix and other entertainment channels on the internet which came in. So you had multiple users on the same internet, which was not the case in the earlier pre-COVID days. So that again opened up a lot of, what I would say, policies from a password policy perspective. It was very open. You could actually guess. And I think if you kind of scan your home networks around, you can still guess the passwords of most of the people. Either it would be the phone numbers, or it could be their first name, last name, or a combination of their kids' names and things like that. So it's a very predictable thing that we created, which kind of helped people to start, getting into the networks and doing any activities which were not really the activities which anybody would want to have. If we look at the corporate sector or the enterprise sector, which started realizing that this is a challenge, and then they started rolling out certain softwares, which typically the VPN is a very known product or a known technology, which people started rolling out, saying, okay, now that I would want to give you a secure network to reach out to the corporate network if you're working from home. Now there are challenges also on the VPN network, because if your endpoint or your laptop is already infected, it doesn't really help you to have a corporate VPN which is still taking you there. So there are laps in the security. Of course, the internal IT of these organizations did not have the bandwidth nor the ability to really manage this kind of a workload.
Yeah.
And there were pressures back from the customers. There were emergency services which had to be up and going. So there was a lot of laps in terms of the processes to be followed, which weren't followed, which would do in a normal way. So the situation started getting a little tougher. And then there was, in between, the businesses opened up. So e-commerce again picked up very well, because people wanted to buy stuff which was easily available or delivered online. So the first 4 weeks of the lockdown, if you see, there was people going, picking it up and coming in. As the e-commerce kind of opened up for services, be it the Swiggies of the world, or it could be the Amazons of the world, again there was a large transactions which started happening, which was again an area which was quite vulnerable in terms of an attack surface. So if you see from a pre-COVID days to the next, say I would say 30 or 40 days from the COVID day, you had a sudden spike of all the surface areas which just increased, and it became so easy to kind of penetrate into anybody's network or laptop and to start taking whatever they needed. Also, the services to block, say maybe if I have a credit card, if I had to reach out to my bank and do that, there was again a smaller staff which was working. So the time to react or time to action on at least stopping the service also kind of started coming down. And that gave a much wider time for people to really go onto it. And this is what we see now, which people starting to understand that these are things that need to be fixed. People have started fixing it, especially the businesses have started fixing it, but the damage is kind of done at this point of time. There are cases that people are reporting, there are cases where people aren't reporting. There have been customers, not really customers, but prospects which have reached out to us saying that they have kind of paid also ransom because they had to get the business moving and they did not really know how to do things. So there is a lot of chaos in this space at this point of time.
Okay, so this chaos that you have very graphically described, this is, so to speak, going to stay for some time, because we don't see the pandemic kind of leaving us anytime soon. And there are various estimates. WHO says it's going to stay for another 2 years, and so this entire scenario is going to continue for at least some time, good time.
Right.
So what are the steps that can be taken, and what more challenges do you see in coming days? Apart from those that you've already outlined, what more challenges in the coming days with this period getting extended, and what solutions do you think that organizations should take now that they have some time with them to kind of counter these attacks?
Right. So I think the most of our discussions with our customers or large customers have been on areas is that this is going to be a prolonged period. There is going to be work from home and work from any place kind of a scenario which is going to happen. It means that the surface area is not suddenly going to be able to be controlled the way it was the pre-COVID days. So what most of the organizations have started doing is that they've started rolling out a small consulting project, or they've been kind of relooking at how the change in work behavior is going to happen, and reassessing a lot of the technologies which were deployed, how those technologies either can be expanded to work from home, or they're reviewing or evaluating newer emerging technologies which are there. Not only from a cyber security perspective, but also from an IT perspective. Now, incidentally, if you look at most of the successful breaches or successful cyber attacks, all kind of come down to one fact, that you have a stolen identity of a super user or a super administrator, or I would say a domain controller. Credentials are stolen, and that is how the hacker is able to take over the entire network or the entire domain of the company. Now, this is where identity management is playing a large role, and reworking on the identity management is something which becomes a priority for all organizations. So it starts off with something which you would say, how do I validate that it's the same person who's trying to log in? It goes back to that basics, where is it a stolen password, or is it a shared password, or is it a genuine user? So you have something which is the multi-factor authentication which starts, or a pre-authentication which could be an OTP, it could be biometrics, it could be any of the radial technologies which are there. So that's kind of playing a large role in it. The second part of it is passwordless communication is also kind of coming into it. So earlier, most of the technologies were using some kind of a password which had to be remembered by the user. Now there are multiple technologies, especially the biometrics and things like those, which allow you to do a passwordless communication or passwordless login which is there. So that's the second part which is coming in play. The third part which comes in play is more with the critical infrastructure, which typically, if you say that any IT asset would need an administrator password and an administrator user ID, which allows it to configure, reconfigure any of these products which are there. So be it a router, be it a server, be it something on the cloud, you basically need as an administrator rights to be able to make any changes. Now, this is what typically most of the cyber criminals are after. The moment I have that, I have a control over the entire asset. Now, this is what we call it the privileged access management. Now, this is something which is now coming into a big play, where you don't start remembering all these assets, the passwords and the username IDs. If you can automate it and put it into a digital vault kind of a solution, then it kind of takes a lot of pressure off the humans in terms of remembering. Humanly, it is not possible to remember, thousands of server names, their administrator IDs and their passwords. So the very common way of doing it is have one password for everybody and, or not change it at all. So that is something which is changing, and that is what a privileged access management is able to process and kind of provide the organization. So what we are able to do is we are saying, okay, we will take all these passwords and usernames, put it into a digital vault, and then able to rotate it also. So once I put it in and I rotate it, I am able to comply with the policies, password management, which are taken by the organization. Either it could be a regulatory thing, or it could be their own policies that they have come to play, which is very much possible to do it with just a little bit of an automation or putting them onto the CyberArk platform. The second part which happens is that whenever I'm going to be logging into a asset as an administrator, then I am not really putting in these passwords. I am fetching the password from the digital vault and getting a connection directly, and that session gets recorded. So if there is anything which I am not doing correctly, from a forensic perspective, I am able to also manage this, kind of go back and see if I make some changes which were not supposed to be done, then there is a clear evidence of saying, okay, Rohan did log into this server at this time, and this is a clear video recording. It's not just logs. What did he do? Did he open another 5 folders which he should not have opened, which had certain critical data? Did he copy something and things like that? So you could actually monitor that part of it. And the third module that we use is the predictive analytics piece, which has 2 parts. One, it has a user behavior pattern. So if Rohan has a particular pattern of working, and that kind of is a what I would say an ML kind of a solution where it learns on its own. That okay, Rohan logs in at 9 o'clock, he logs in from Pune, he will only operate in this hours and things. Any anomalies to my behavior will kind of flag out. And then the other part is, which is a correlationship between multiple data points. It could be SIEM, it could be network sensors, it could be the Active Directory, which kind of correlate an incident and say that, is this a real incident? Is this something, or there is some anomalies in that? And that is kind of goes as a feedback back and forth, and it keeps monitoring this whole solution. Now, during the pandemic, the start of the pandemic, we acquired a company called Adaptive, which is basically into multi-factor authentication, SSO, and an MDM kind of a solution. So that kind of helps us to manage endpoints now in a much better way, apart from the rest of the technologies that we were managing. So this is something which becomes a very robust kind of a solution in terms of managing identities, and especially privileged identities, which is the last line of defense and this is the most sought after assets, or I would say it's the key to the IT kingdom, which is what all hackers would want to go after. So that's something which we've seen a big conversation happening with most of the IT firms, with most of the enterprise organizations, which would want to start adopting the privilege access management which is there. And this comes more from an experience perspective in terms of what has happened in their organizations, and they've realized that this is something which needs to be put in place, Also, for the last 2 years, Gartner has been promoting the fact that the top priority of a CISO in any large organization should be the privilege access management which is there. And it kind of all falls in place now. If you look at a lot of the social media accounts, if you see, have been hacked. There are rounds which have been happening for very celebrity personalities where the hack has happened. Now, that's another part. If you look at it, if somebody is able to take over my account and start tweeting, or on the Facebook start putting images or things which is the not right information, it's a lot of damage to the reputation, right? Now that is something also, as a privilege access management solution provider, is what we are able to help not only individuals but also large organizations, because in large organizations you will always have accounts which are managed by the marketing department. So it would be a CEO Twitter account which would normally get managed by a marketing or a social media team, so that there is a regular update and things like those. So those are things which are corporate accounts, which again can be onboarded onto these on the CyberArk solution, which kind of protects you from all these kind of haphazards, which can really ruin reputations.
Okay, Rohan, you have just highlighted all the dangers that we have from hackers. Can you also illustrate through some examples, some real-time examples, maybe not with names of individuals and companies, but some instances which have impacted businesses, maybe small or big, and which can happen to anyone? Can you give examples about it in real time?
Okay, so I think one of the largest piece which has been there now, which is making what I would say headlines, have been with the IT companies. They have been subjected to a ransomware attack, and that's come on the media. So there have been 3 or 4 over the last, I would say about 3 or 4 months, with large IT companies which come in. Now that's something which you have two challenges when you have such a situation which happens. One is, if you are an IT organization, and if you're a large global IT organization where there is a immense trust from your end customers when they get you into this business, is primarily you understand this business well, and that is why we employ you to either outsource or manage our IT infrastructure and advise us to do that. When this kind of a company gets or is a victim of a cyber attack, there is a large challenge which the organization faces in terms of the trust with the customers, which is there. Fixing that is an immediate issue, and it's fixing that and explaining to the customers that there is, which will not happen again, becomes a priority for these customers, because in today's world, anyone and everybody could be a possible victim of a cyber attack in some sense or the other. But then learning from your mistakes and making sure that you have narrowed down your options of not being attacked the next time is an important part of the conversation, and that is what you are able to rebuild your trust on. So that's one of the areas which is there. The second part of it is, a lot of these organizations would have signed in terms of a legal obligation. You have other regulatory bodies like GDPR. You have in the US, you have their own regulatory bodies, as well as Japan and Australia. These are very sensitive to customer information which could be breached, and there are penalties around it, which again, if you as an organization, you are subjected to those penalties. If you're a service provider, there are a lot of times back-to-back agreements which are signed and have a legal repercussion as well as a financial repercussion in terms of doing it. So there could be tons and millions of dollars of fines which could be put onto you, which could actually ruin your business. And there have been certain incidences, especially in the American market, where the fines have been so large that people had to file bankruptcy. It's happened not with very large companies, what you would call it in the SMB segment, or the, so those are smaller organizations which contract with large organizations, and the contracts were very stringent, and the fines which turned out to be in terms of it very high. So there have been few companies which actually ran out of business just because they could not pay the fines which are there.
Okay, that's quite a scary scenario. Here, can we talk about, with such dangers ahead, or what is the size of the basically what how big is the security market in India, and what has been the growth rate? Can you shed some light on that?
Okay, so if you look at the India security market, the way things have progressed is that initially the focus has always been, or the known names in the security space have been, I would say, Nortons and the Symantec of the world, which was a visible software into either a malware or a antivirus, which was a very prominent top of the iceberg touch point, where most of the IT professionals and non-IT professionals kind of thought about it, that this is the best solution, and this is something which, if you have it, you will not be attacked. And maybe 25, 30 years back, or maybe even not even 30 years, maybe about 15, 17 years back, it was sufficient to do protect it, at least on a personal front. You had data centers and, I would say, on-prem solutions with most of the organizations, which had physical security as well as, I would say, perimeter security, like firewalls and antivirus solutions and all these kind of things, or network security devices, which kind of contained a lot of information within it. The only challenges which at that time had to be managed was more to do with insider threat, and that most of the organizations had a very robust way of managing that. So if you see, most of the physical security heads used to be ex-army men or ex-policemen, and they had a way of investigating and managing a lot of the human resources who would go around it. CCTVs were considered to be one of the very primary investigation, what I would say, the technologies when it came to data center security. So you could actually see who went in, went out, was he carrying something with him, did he get something out. At that time, the security threats was physical transfer of data, either through pen drives or somebody carrying a disk out of the data center. Now with the scenario changing to a cloud environment, and most of us have started getting onto the internet, it kind of opened up a whole plethora of challenges, which are now coming up as saying, if I am not able to protect and secure this part of it, it's going to be very difficult to do that, right? So not only internet has opened up situations, but then there are a lot of applications which we use are related to internet. So SaaS is a very popular offering now, and it allows you to not only do your business quite efficiently, but it kind of, the time to market a solution is much faster with SaaS solutions now. So internet is becoming somewhat, you can't really get away from it. So with this change in the scenario, you have a whole range of products in the cybersecurity space which you see in India. The more established players are the likes of the firewall providers, where they have a physical presence for many years, and they continue to grow within the space, because initially it was the enterprise space, now it's the SMB space, and now it's the startup space, all because are dealing with data, and data seems to be the next gold mine for every business. There is a physical piece which is required for our organization. So you have a whole range of players in that space, whether you call it a firewall or you call it a UTM, which is the new terminology, which is the advanced firewall, which is there. Then you have a lot on the web part, the web control, which is there. There are a lot of companies which are into the network security. There is a large part of what I would say security now in the SIEM business, where you have SOC or security centers which needs to have some kind of a automation to allow them to have an incident response. So if you look at a larger part of the technologies, you have somewhere they have been established technologies which are still growing. There are newer technologies like the identity management, because that has been quite prominent over the last 3-4 years. And with this last year or so, where the attacks have become more sophisticated, and then there is a business model to all these attacks, especially when the ransomware came in, there was a very instant gratification which the cyber criminals were able to really come up with. They could probably just go after about 100 companies, and maybe even 5 companies paid them off. It was a few hours of work which handsomely paid them, and it supported them for the next attack which they could do. So those are things which have started coming in. Endpoint management is another area, or endpoint security is another area which we see in India now really ramping up very well. Yes, it's the need of the hour, because everybody is into that device which needs to be managed well. And there have been many companies, there have been a lot of Indian companies as well as new startups, as well as established players, MNC players which have been in that space now, which is also growing very fast.
Okay, as you say that there are a lot of companies which are doing a lot in this domain, but can you just briefly tell us, what exactly are technology firms such as CyberArk they are doing to enable business remain safe while assessing information remotely? Can you tell us some of the initiatives that CyberArk has taken for this purpose?
Okay, so one is that the acquisition which I talked about was an acquisition which kind of put us into a very strong position from a identity access management framework, and especially more niche into it is the privilege access management. So we have now a portfolio which completes from an end-to-end perspective. So right from the first authentication which happens with the multi-factor, to securing not only the servers but also the cloud space. The DevOps is a new terminology, or a new technologies within the DevOps space are kind of catching up, especially with all the e-commerce companies, as well as if you look at the banking segment or even the manufacturing segment. People don't really want to wait to go through the whole process of creating a software and then testing it and then deploying it. You see most apps today, you would have changes or version upgrades happening every second, third week. There's a new feature which comes in, and all that is only possible because these companies either are using DevOps or they have a vendor who uses DevOps as a platform to really build that up. Now, having said that, if I have to protect identities, those identities are not only, the administrative identities are not only limited to an endpoint, or not they limited to a server or a physical device. They are kind of spread across. So right from an endpoint, it could be a laptop, it could be a endpoint device, it could be your servers, it could be your Linux servers, it could be any of the device which has an IP address. If that are not protected, then there is no way you would be able to kind of protect, because the entry point today could be anything for a hacker. It's not necessary that it has to go through your laptop. Now, there are a few things that CyberArk went in to make sure that we now are able to help our customers much better. One of the realization was that security is not security is what I would say a team game. If you have, say, multiple technologies within your organizations which are deployed from a cyber security perspective, and each of these technologies don't talk to each other, then there is a larger challenge, because if the left hand doesn't know what the right hand does, it's a very easy way for a hacker to navigate within the system and then move forward. So as an organization, we've been promoting something called, what we call it, the C-Cube Alliance. The C-Cube Alliance is an initiative by CyberArk which allows you to start onboarding multiple other technologies out of the box into the CyberArk platform. So you may have, and we cater to close to about 300 odd technologies where we have out of the box plugins available. So for example, if you are a company which uses ServiceNow, which is a ticketing tool, ServiceNow can be onboarded onto CyberArk platform because there is a plugin available. Now there could be multiple of not only cyber security companies which could be onboarded, but there could be other platforms which from an IT platform which could be onboarded. So that kind of allows you to quickly start securing a lot of the IT assets. The traditional way of doing it is that every time you say, okay, this is a critical asset, then you would start developing a connector, and then that connector could take quite some time in terms of building it, and there is a time lag, and then you have newer versions which will come in, which would again mean more effort and money which is there. So that's one initiative which has kind of helped customers to see or secure their technologies which they have deployed, and each of these technologies are now then aggregated on the CyberArk platform, which allows it to be protected. So their passwords and their privileged identities of all the technologies kind of thing. The other part which we have in a continuous process of the CyberArk Research Lab, which kind of starts, have been researching on a lot of vulnerabilities, and we've been calling out those vulnerabilities in terms of building those capabilities within the product to handle that. And that's a large part of in the research and development, which we've been spending money for many years now to do that. The third, what I would say is that we have come up with something called as a kind of a framework to go back to our existing customers, where we are reassessing their ability and their what I would say, their security posture, and that security posture then could be reassessed and then fixed to it. So we do it in two parts. One is a framework which initially we called it the hygiene program. It's called the blueprint, which we go ahead and do that. The other part is we also have a red team initiative where we could kind of stimulate a red team, which allows you to do investigation or a stimulated attack, and then back with results saying that these are the areas which seem to be a challenge and you need to start fixing it. So there is a lot of proactive we've been going into it.
Okay, that's great. Realizing the importance of data and the entire issue, eLets Technomedia, our eGov magazine, which primarily focuses on governance issues and is all about e-governance. So I would like to tell you that we have been very proactively working on this theme, not recently, but since the past almost 10 years, we've been working on this theme. And for this purpose, we've been creating knowledge sharing platforms, which were physical in nature before the pandemic, but now they are virtual. And in that continuity, we are organizing our ninth Secure IT Summit, which is scheduled for September 18th. And we will be deliberating almost on all these issues that you have highlighted. There will be panel discussions on dimensions of national security, changing times, and how India can be secured. There will be discussions on how technology can be leveraged and how cities can be ensured that they are safe, and the importance of surveillance. The data security, as you say, is the data is the is now as good as gold, and how businesses can be protected and national assets can be protected, along with the capacity building and cybersecurity and forensics. So these are some of the issues that we will be deliberating on, and we will have our panel discussions, and already we have some very good top policymakers from across the country who will be joining us. And I would like if we can have association with CyberArk also on this, and but we will keep you posted with all that we are doing in this domain. And
Sure.
It was lovely talking to you, and I hope our association continues both online and offline as well. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
For this interaction. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.